All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Justin Hayes, and today I'm interviewing Mr. Evan Myers on Into the Books. Some may know him as a wrestling teacher or an English teacher, I know him as an English teacher, but some people actually don't know that he's also a writer. How are you doing today, Mr. Myers?
I'm doing super well, Justin. Thank you for having me on. I'm really excited about the launch of my book here, so good day.
I've got some questions about yourself in your book.
Okay.
So first question, what are 3 fun facts about yourself besides being a writer?
All right. Well, one fun thing about my writing experience is that I started writing in high school. I actually was I wrote several plays, and several of them have been performed. They've won a couple of awards. One of my plays was performed in high school, and so that was kind of where my writing kicked off. But this is my first novel. Hobbies-wise, I am musical. I like to play the piano and sing a little bit. I've done a little bit of that as well. And the third thing, a lot of you guys know that I coach wrestling here. I'm super into martial arts, so that's another hobby of mine. I do a lot of Brazilian jiu-jitsu and a lot of wrestling and a lot of fighting arts. That's kind of how I try to stay fit. So
that's super cool. Yeah. How do you balance with all that, with being a teacher, a coach, and a writer?
Well, I'll tell you, it took a lot of discipline to establish the right kind of a schedule. When you're both a teacher and a coach, you end up having to budget your time and your resources very, very carefully if you want to make sure you're meeting all your obligations. So, to be honest with you, it was a lot of getting up early in the morning to make sure that I was hitting my writing cues, because I would get up at probably 4:30 a.m. most days so that I could get to writing before I went to school, and then went to wrestling practice after that, and then jiu-jitsu practice after that, and then I went home and wrote a little bit more, and then I went to sleep. And well, about a year and a half later, I ended up having a book. So
that's great. That's great. Of course, being a writer, you've got to be a reader too. So what are some of your favorite books?
Gotcha. Well, you've had my English class, so you know I'm a huge bookworm, maybe the biggest bookworm in the entire school. I challenge anybody to. Actually, there's lots of readers in the school, but I'd say that my big inspirations for me, I love old school literature, but I also love pulpy action-adventure novels like as much as the next guy. You know, compare it to film. Not every film is Citizen Kane. You know, sometimes a film is just like The Avengers. Like, it's just fun and people want to go see it. I like to think my book is somewhere in between those. So while I like books of literary merit, like The Road, which I'm reading with my juniors right now, is one of my favorite books of all time, and Blood Meridian and No Country for Old Men. I like a lot of Cormac McCarthy's deep books like that. But I also like kind of popcorn action-adventure novels, like Clive Cussler stories like Treasure or Mediterranean Caper. And then, of course, you know, as a teacher of young adult literature, I'm a big fan of young adult literature as well. So the Divergent series is excellent. I love The Hunger Games, novels like that. So,
yeah. What made you want to be a writer? What was that kind of step through your head?
When I was a kid, I always thought that a blank piece of paper was the most exciting thing in the world, Justin, because I would be looking at a pen in my hand and a paper in front of me, and there'd be nothing on it, and that would get me really, really motivated to be like, this could be anything that I want it to be. And all I needed was a pen and my imagination, and all of a sudden I could go on an adventure.
Yeah,
so
that's cool.
You know, that's one of those things that I love doing. That's what I love about being alive, is seeing everything that the world has to offer and just going on adventures. And I can do that through my writing too. And so I wanted to write my own adventure. And
that's cool.
This is my first novel, and I hope it's all right.
Yeah. So what's the world like in this novel? What's kind of tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. My book, it's called Dusk on the Western Range. It is a post-apocalyptic action-adventure Western novel, I guess is a good way of putting it. One of my colleagues at the school who read some of it, she was very kind, and she said, it's kind of like Divergent meets The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which was like, that's an awesome compliment.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd say that my book, really, it's the setting is a post-pandemic world. Ironically, I didn't come up with the story. I came up with the story long before I'd ever heard of COVID-19.
Right.
But basically, in the world of my book, there was a large biological attack. And it's very mysterious, but 3 out of 4 people in the United States were killed over the course of a week. And so it's a very bleak, dreary kind of dangerous world, but my book takes place 30 years after that attack, and society has started to rebuild somewhat, although with a smaller number of people.
Right, right, and that's super cool. Who are some of the main characters? Can you tell us
Sure.
about, without spoiling anything, of course?
No, I will try not to spoil anything, but you can see the cover here. I've got two main characters, David, who is about your age at the beginning of the story, and then Bly, who is a little older. She's in her 50s. But David and Bly, they have to learn to trust one another and help each other survive in this new Wild West that they've kind of found themselves in. It's they go on this adventure across Montana together, and then they really kind of grow and learn to accept and know one another a little bit better as kind of almost a mother and son dynamic almost.
Mm-hmm. All right. Why did you choose this specific genre? You could have chose anything.
Yeah,
Why did
yeah.
you choose this one?
My friend Michael always likes to make fun of me. He's like, because I love anybody that's a fan of like the Fallout series of video games, anybody that's a fan of the Walking Dead TV show, anybody that's a fan of The Last of Us is a video game that is just outstanding. I know those are all M-rated games, but they're that genre of post-apocalypse has always really fascinated me. But so has the Western genre. I grew up watching old Clint Eastwood films with my paps, my grandfather, and so loving Old West and loving post-apocalypse. And I figured, man, if I can blend those together and kind of create my own world and then start an adventure in that story, well, there we go.
Yeah, that's cool. Kind of following back to your characters, how do you feel like you see yourself in each character?
Sure. Many of my characters are not directly based on other people, but a couple of them definitely share character traits with other people. How do I see myself? I do suppose I see a little bit of myself in David, because it is kind of a coming-of-age novel, and when I was writing him, I remember thinking, like, well, what was it like when I was a teenager? Which wasn't that long ago. What was it like when I was a teenager? And I can remember growing up really, really, really quickly. I was in the military for a little while. Right out of high school, I enlisted in the Army National Guard. And I can remember going to boot camp and experiencing, like, this jarring change of culture to where it's all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm in the Army now. I've got to learn to be an adult, act like a soldier, and carry myself in a good manner. And so I think that David's introduction into a very violent and jarring and different world, because he grows up in a place that's a little more sheltered than the Greater Western Range, which is the title of the name of the setting in which the story takes place. But his introduction into that world, very much so, was kind of like, I guess I related to that quite a bit.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Is there anything that you need to do to prepare for this story? Any other novels or movies or TV shows to watch? Is it a spin-off? Or?
No, it's no spin-off. It's an original work of my own. No, you can just pick up the novel and go for it. A couple of my friends and family members that have read it said, I'm not really, normally a big fan of reading at all, but like I really like your book, and like I can see it almost like it's playing as a movie in my head. And they said that, no, absolutely. You don't need to pick anything up. Just pick it up and start reading. Start on page 1.
That's great. That's great. Is there going to be a sequel without spoiling? Of course.
So, man, how do you not spoil that, Justin? I think that there is a strong possibility of a sequel in the future, although maybe not immediately. I've got other writing projects that I want to try and tackle after this one. But I did, without spoiling too much, I left it open-ended to an extent that I'm like, if I wish to write a sequel, I will. But my next book may be something different entirely, and who knows, maybe I'll even tackle a different genre.
That's cool. That's cool. I have one final question for you. When is this book going to be released?
It's already out right now. This is not. This is an actual copy that has been ordered. It is available right now on Amazon. You can just go to Amazon and search for Evan Myers, Dusk on the Western Range. It is available as a paperback and as an ebook. The last week of school, that is the week of May 23rd, I'm going to have a book signing probably in my classroom where I teach English, but possibly elsewhere in the school. I've been talking with other school staff members, and we're going to see where I can set up shop. But I will have a limited limited number of books available for signing. But alternatively, if there's any students out there or any staff members out there or anybody listening right now that would like a signed copy of Dusk on the Western Range, if you order one and bring it to me, I will sign it. I will sign it for free.
All right, perfect, perfect. That sounds like so much fun. It was great to see you today, Mr. Myers. Thank you for everyone tuning in today. You guys can get your cowboy hats and your boots ready for Dusk on the Western Range.
Sounds good. Thank you, Justin. I appreciate you having me on, man.